an unusual thing, even though I'm sure there'll be more people coming later, but we appreciate you so much for joining us today. Got a few announcements first before we begin. My name is Bill Meyer. I'm the Vice President of the Hamtramck NAACP. And we have a sign-in sheet at the front table. If you are not on our mailing list and would like to be, please put your name there and email address or phone number, and we would gladly keep you informed of what we're doing. We also need money, like every organization needs money, and this is a free forum, so you don't have to pay anything. But if you do have a few extra dollars and you want to put it in that box over there for our expenses, a little basket there, you can do that. Or you can also buy some DVDs from our last forums that we've had, in case you haven't missed those. Also, we have a few t-shirts left from the NAACP that you can purchase those too if you'd like to. So we would encourage you to leave some money for the NAACP if you can, but if not, don't worry. We have meetings once a month, the first Saturday of every month, and we meet at the Hamtramck Library. Public general membership meetings are at 11 a.m. every first Saturday of the month. We have membership forms over here on the table. If you are not a member of the Hamtramck NAACP, we would encourage you to join. We really would appreciate you to join and help us do our work. We also would like to identify members who are in the room today who are members of the NAACP, and please raise your hand if you are already a member so that people know who you are and we can talk to you further and later on. Most of us are here, so we appreciate it. We really thank you so much for coming and participating in this. This is tough subjects to deal with. The police, discrimination, crimes, these are heavy subjects that most people don't want to talk about even in rainy weather. So here we have sunny weather, so I would also encourage everyone to really be open and say what you feel like saying today. Don't hold anything back. We want to get everything out and talk about whatever you think is critical in the city. And I would like to say, before I introduce our new Chief of Police, Max Garbarino, that you should know that, and I think, and maybe others will verify this, in the entire history of Hamtramck NAACP, I don't think we've ever had a Chief of Police who was as supportive as Max Garbarino. I don't think we've ever had a Chief of Police who was a member of the NAACP. Besides, he actually is a member, a card-carrying member of the Hamtramck NAACP, and we thank you so much for. And he comes to every meeting we have, and he, in addition to every other meeting in the city, he seems to be attending everything, and which means he's obviously very committed to having a good relationship with the people in the city. We have a tremendous opportunity here that we've never had, at least since I've been here, to deal with the leader of the police department, the person who helps develop relationships between the police and the community, who is a supporter as Max Garbarino. So we're very fortunate to have him here today, and I know he's very open about addressing any questions, any concerns. So I hope you have brought some questions and points to say. So the first thing I would like to do is welcome our new Chief of Police, Max Garbarino, to say a few words of welcome to you. Max Garbarino.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that warm opening there, and I also like to thank everyone else for coming out today. I just checked my phone, it's 86 degrees out. It is definitely the most beautiful day out thus far. So, and each and every one of you did take time on your schedules to come here today, and I appreciate that. So, I'm very happy to be here today. This has been a long time coming. Ever since I was appointed acting back in November, Bill and some of the others have been asking me to do this, and I was like, hold on, I kind of want to get sworn in, and then finally I got sworn in. I looked at Bill the same, within a few minutes, and said, okay, set it up. So, like I said, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can as we go along. I'm hoping to respond to these other wonderful panelists today, and hopefully the future will bring good things between the Hamtramck Police Department and community as all you. So, also, just one last thing, I'm always available if anyone wants to talk after or in private for that matter as well. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Max. And yes, so he did explain why we're sitting here on the warm summer day inside, because he couldn't commit to being a guest until he was confirmed as the Chief of Police. And we were going to do this in January or February, right? Yeah, so we were waiting and waiting for this great day, so when we could discuss issues like this with Max. So now our first panelist is a lady that probably most of you who've lived here for a long time know, because if she wasn't born in Hamtramck, but she lived here a long time, and she knows a lot about the history of Hamtramck. And she is our elected president of the Hamtramck NAACP, and she's going to come up and maybe address some issues about the history of Hamtramck's police department and its relationship with the community over the years, and a few stories I'm sure she's got to tell you, and then we're going to give Max a chance to respond. So here's our own NAACP president, Juanita Seifers.
Good evening to everyone. I wasn't born here in Hamtramck, but when I was a little girl, I used to be in Hamtramck every Saturday. I grew up around Davidson and Dearland, and we used to go to the Martha Washington show. Some of y'all that's old enough to remember the Martha Washington movie theater. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep it short because all of you know that I am not a long-winded person. I don't talk that long. Well, I have lived in Hamtramck for over 45 years. And for a black person to get a job in Hamtramck, it was impossible. You had to know someone. And then that still didn't work for you. And it's still the same. In the city hall, you go through there now, we do not have no blacks working in the city hall. We have one black that's up in the court, but that's still, she's not through the city. And we only have had, that I know of, one black fireman here in the city. And since he have retired, no black. And to even to get on to work in the school system, when the blacks started applying for the jobs as secretary, custodians, they passed this. They had to take a test. Before then, they hired all their friends and family members, and even the teachers. Because I remember one of the ladies that played the piano at our church, she applied for a job as a music teacher, and they told her no. And the school board, they hired her daughter for that job, and that wasn't right either. Oh, and when the Hamtramck police first got their dog, Justice, the guy that used to have the dog, he used to go at night through the housing projects and chase the kids with the dog. And that wasn't good at all. And that's why the people are afraid of the Hamtramck police. We never had no communications with them. Just like now, I don't know, are you familiar with it? At night, over on Dyer and Grand Haven, right off of Kniff, at night, you see the police cars driving down the street with their lights on. They're not looking for no one, but that's what they're still doing. And I think it was last year, when Dickinson West was still at St. Lads, the kids had a half a day of school, and some of the kids wasn't getting on the bus riding home. There was a group of little black boys that walked home, and the police stopped them and pat them down, had them up against the building and the car, and they just come out of school. Now, what could they have had on them? And then, I guess you are familiar with this one. It must, year before last, one of the associate ministers over here at Corinthian Church, he was going home, and he saw some of the Hamtramck police had a group of black boys down on the ground. And he stopped and asked what was going on, and then come to find out one of them was his nephew. So quite sure he was to stay there to see what was going on with him, because that's one of his relatives. And they told him to get back, to obstruct justice and this and that, and went on. And they ended up arresting the man. Now, why would they arrest him? And he's not big as I am. And what they figured, he was a threat to them. And that wasn't right either. Well, I could go on and on, but I'm not. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Seavers. Okay, the overarching thing I've noticed pretty much all those incidents is the lack of communication between now my department and the community. I think a lot of this over the years probably could have been resolved if we just had, prior to me, a chief administrator that could come out in the community and say, listen, this is what happened, come on in, we'll show you, we can talk to the officers, get to the bottom of exactly what the situation was. One of the first points that was brought up was the lack of representation within the fire department of the city. The one thing I did know is that you didn't say the police department, which I'm very pleased. So we do have representation within the police department currently of various minorities. However, I do believe we are still underrepresented in that aspect. There's numerous things that I hope to do to hopefully change that as time progresses, but as you know, it's not something that can happen overnight. I wish I could, but I just can't. A few other things that was mentioned about the dog in the projects, in particular what caught my attention was the scout car driving with no lights. That could have been anything. I mean, they could have been looking for something. I mean,
All the time.
well, they do that. It's a tactic quite often they do to try and catch criminals and sneak up on people. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I personally, if I seen a scout car going through the neighborhood with no lights on, my first reaction is, oh good, they're out there doing what they're supposed to be, they're looking for bad guys. But I understand where, if the communication's not there, where you might presume that, who knows what they're doing. But this is where I step in and say, call me. I'll tell you exactly what they're doing. Send me an email. I'll ask the officers, what were you guys up to last night? In real short and simple, we'll get to the bottom of it. Some of these other things that were brought up, I was here during that time, wasn't necessarily involved in it. If there's specific incidents, people would like me to look into, I'm more than happy to familiarize myself with it, and then we can talk about it. We can try and get to the bottom of what, at least from our perspective, what was going on, and hopefully shed some light, from at least, our view, and then, maybe we didn't do everything right. I don't know, but, maybe we did too, and maybe there's just no communication. But like I said, the overarching thing is we just need to communicate between the police department and the citizens. I was going to say fire department and the citizens, so we can overcome this. That's pretty much all I had to recap on that. So I will pass it on. Thank you.
For the gentleman who I really would like to give a few minutes to here, I wouldn't dare use the word politician for this gentleman because he's one of us. He's an absolutely beautiful person who's committed to the community more than anybody I know. And he did a most gracious thing, which he doesn't want to talk about, but I will say this. He changed districts to run for office again to save our venerated Congressman John Conyers. And he's in this district now with us running in our community, and we put all our support behind him as a human being, as much as a politician. And we want to have him please come up and say a few words to us, because he knows all about it. Hanson Clark.
First of all, to President Seifers and Vice President Meyer, to all of the officers and members of the Hamtramck NAACP, it's an honor for me to be here. Hanson Clark, U.S. Representative from the 13th District, soon to be the 14th District. The legislature essentially changed the numbers of the district. Bill did allude to something that I don't talk about, which was the politics of it. The goal was to decrease minority representation from the state of Michigan. And I want to just touch on that before I sit down, but I wanted to thank Raphael for his courage and his advocacy, and also to our chief, Garbarino, who reached out to me many times. He wants to make sure that the criminal justice system works for people, not only in Hamtramck, but throughout this country. So I want to thank you again, and for you to be here and hold yourself publicly accountable. That is our job, but also in this time where politics really rules, that is courageous for you to do that. Thank you very much. So, I want to just deal straight up with the issue about color. To one degree, whether you have someone who is of color representing the district, well, that may or may not really make a difference. For me, I wanted the opportunity to represent Hamtramck in the metropolitan area because of who I am as a man. I'm the son of Thelma Clark, who's an African-American woman who grew up on the North End. And when Juanita was talking about just the series of injustices that have occurred in the city, my mother had to deal with that because she grew up in this area during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. She never got a chance to do anything that she really wanted to do in life. All of those doors were closed off to her. The city, this region, was so segregated at the time that that is how she met her future husband, Abdul Hashim, who at that time was an immigrant from India, now probably known as Bangladesh, Sylhet, and specifically Bieni Bazaar, is where my father was from. But they met because my dad and my uncle could only live in one area in Detroit, Black Bottom, because of color, because of discrimination. So my uncle introduced my father. He said, hey, my sister's nice. She's not married. Maybe you can, meet her. So they fell in love, got married, moved over on Mack Avenue in Detroit. I'm their only child. Now, I want to tell you something. Since only you and Hamtramck would understand what my household was like, okay? Father, very devout Muslim, prayed 5 times a day, was the cook of the house, cooked curry all the time. Closest I can get to it is Aladdin down the street, okay? All right, so I go there. My mother, soul food, fried chicken on every Sunday. It was a great way to be raised. My dad, I would pray with him and my mother at the mosque on Dix Road. My mother was Anne Zion, but out of her love and respect for her husband, she converted to Islam, and I was raised in that mosque until I was 8 when my father passed away. I am now a member of Sacred Heart Catholic Church, and I'm a lay minister there. But my point is this, is that this is very tragic, and I will sit down, but it's a personal issue, is that my mother was hoping that her son could pass, so I wouldn't have to go through what she had to go through, going up here in the city. You see what I'm saying? And my mother died when I was 19 years old. I felt that being a representative of this area, that it was one way for me to really fulfill on my dream of seeing all of our people come together as one, as Americans in this country. And as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, to make sure that we really protect our citizens from threats that are abroad, and protect our people by doing this, by getting rid and stopping stereotyping and profiling folks. I get targeted all the time. I'm a member of Congress. I go to the Capitol to vote. I always get stopped by the Capitol Police. I wonder why, So in order for us to really make sure that those principles upon which our country was founded on, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, those basic rights that are secured by our Constitution and our government. We have got to continue the mission of this NAACP now more than ever before. And in closing, it's because, look, we've gotten rid of the old Jim Crow laws, but we have a new Jim Crow right now. Mass incarceration of our young people. We have profiling that is rampant, and we use the fight against terror as an excuse to still discriminate against our people, more so than ever before. That's outrageous. So to a certain degree, who I am, how I was raised, my experiences, what I have to go through, I gave up hope when I was 23 years old of ever making it in life, after I lost everything that was important to me, my family, my job, my scholarship in college, my food stamps are cut off. I don't need somebody to tell me what it's like through some memo or briefing of what people have to go through. I had to go through it myself. So that's why, for me, all this political nonsense you hear about out here, that doesn't faze me at all. You'll have a representative that's committed to continue to fight and work for you, because that's my whole reason for being your representative. Thank you so much, Hamtramck and NAACP. Thank you for fighting for justice. That fight is needed now than ever before, and I will be honored to be your advocate directly now, representing Hamtramck. Thank you.
Forum today is about race, racial profiling, discrimination, crime, and security, safety in the community, along with many, many other issues. There's lots of issues. We can't cover them all today, I know that. We're going to try to cover as many as we can, ones you're interested in. And for those who came in a little late, the format is going to be, we're going to spend the first half of the forum with the panelists, and then the second half will be with the audience, and everybody here can contribute equally. I want to give you a statement that was made by Donnell White. He's the new president of the Detroit NAACP. He said, "We don't have quite the same issues now. The fight is not as pervasive and in your face as it used to be. The fight is being taken from the street to the suite. Now it's more cloaked in public policy and regulations that separate us rather than unite us." And Hanson Clark did mention a very important thing, that we're looking for unity. We're trying to find a way to work together. He embodies unity right in his own self himself. I mean, we can't do that, but we can at least hang out with people that aren't like us, and that's how we bring the community together. We have to do that. That's the only way we'll all survive. So, the other important thing is, and he referenced this also about mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. This is an age where we don't talk about race, where there is no racism anymore. We're all not racist anymore. We're all colorblind. We all just be treated equally. I mean, that's what we all feel. We all feel justice. So we feel the civil rights movement has succeeded in many ways, and so now if there's any problems, they're individual problems. They don't have to do with race. But there's a tremendous book, and he referenced this mass incarceration, called The New Jim Crow. This is by Michelle Alexander. If I can recommend any one book to you to read on this issue, this is the one to read. This is a groundbreaking book, The New Jim Crow. This is the one that states that it's not official anymore, racism. It's all done within the system, and it's done without people even realizing it. People think they're not racist, think they're not doing a racial thing, and yet it ends up that the majority of people in prison are in prison for drugs, and that the majority of them are for marijuana use, and that the vast majority are African Americans, way higher than the population in outside of the prisons. And amazingly, the use of marijuana, for example, in the community is just as high or higher within the white community than it is in the black community. But somehow there's a way of running the system, and this book explains it. I won't get into it. I was going to read chapters out of this for you and all that today because it's so valuable, but I will save you from that. Just get the book if you can yourself, and then we'll talk after you read it, because it'll change your mind about this whole issue. Next on our panel is a young man who some of us know. He's very active in the community. I met him as an activist, and there's a lot of social issues going on about race and the economy and the Occupy movement. He was very active in those issues, and the issues of collective bargaining. And he also lives in Hamtramck and works for Hamtramck Community Initiatives. Is that the name of it, right? HCI. And we wanted to invite him to come here and address what's going on in the community now, from his level, from his perspective, working with groups like Weed and Seed. and he's a good friend of ours, so we'd like to have you welcome Raphael Thurin.
Hello, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Raphael Thurin, local resident, social worker. Actually came to Hamtramck to get my master's in social work from Wayne State. I was employed here for a little while. I also am a volunteer now as the Community Outreach Director for Hamtramck Community Initiative. And at Hamtramck Community Initiative, we work to create a safe and vibrant community by building lasting partnerships between local residents, nonprofits, city entities, and local businesses to reduce crime, revitalize our neighborhoods, and build community capacity. Our work is guided by the values of diversity, inclusion, and community leadership. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about my approach to the reduction of crime, racism, and discrimination locally here in Hamtramck. And we basically do this by increasing community organization through relationship building. This is a lot like what Chief Governor was talking about, communication, basically trying to increase communication. So at HCI, Hamtramck Community Initiative, we work to build resident-led community organizations, such as block clubs. And block clubs are organizations that are small, and they're not actual blocks, but they're like, say, quarter square mile chunks of the city. And they're resident-led, and they do activities such as cleanups, they do neighborhood watch activities, they do social activities such as potlucks, they do graffiti removal, and those sorts of things. We also organized another organization called Hamtramck Citizens Patrol, and the Hamtramck Citizens Patrol works with the police department to reduce crime in the city by patrolling regularly and reporting crime or safety issues to the authorities. And these organizations, they don't only work on projects to solve the direct issues, but they work by building relationships and leadership and capacity necessary to combat the larger issues. These organizations the way they work is to create a safe space for residents to interface with their community. For example, like at our block club meetings, the residents come, and then maybe a city official will come to this meeting, or a police official or police officer will come to this meeting. And what happens there at the block clubs is you get to meet each other. Like where residents may not be comfortable going to the police, and the police, I actually have noticed this, that a lot of times the police sitting in these meetings aren't necessarily comfortable talking to the residents at first. But after this happens for a couple of meetings, they start to develop a relationship to where they can exchange information that's useful to them and that's useful to the police. And then in times where there are these community issues that happen, the residents feel comfortable then going and working with the police to solve those larger issues. And we can do that in a more efficient and more constructive way. So I know that there's larger systemic issues when dealing with issues of crime, racism, and discrimination. But before we can combat those issues, we need to be better organized as a community here in Hamtramck. And if you're interested in Hamtramck Community Initiative and the type of work that we do, you can check us out online at www.hamtramckcommunityinitiative.org, or you can just talk to me after this. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. I just had a couple things to add to that. Raphael mentioned the block clubs. I strongly encourage everyone, please attend your block clubs. The one promise I will make to you is I'm going to do my best to either have myself personally or an officer at the block clubs so you can talk to them and tell them exactly what's going on in your communities. That helps us patrol and partner with you to keep the city much safer. It allows us to know exactly what's going on a block-by-block level. We can then email our departments and essentially zone in on issues. With that said, what I'm hoping to do with our department is shift it from kind of a walled-up little community over there sitting on Eveline and turned it into more of a community-oriented, community policing model, police department. However, with that said, it's going to take time to do that. It's not going to happen overnight. As Raphael noted, it's even kind of sometimes uncomfortable for my officers to go there because they're just not used to doing that. I've heard a few of them say to me actually, well, you know, why do you go there, Chief? Aren't they just beating you up? And I had to actually sit them down and say, no, they're telling me the issues that are happening in the community, you know, and guess what? You're coming with me next time. So, but like I said, you know, I can't encourage you enough, you know, attend your block clubs and come out and I'll make you a promise that I'm going to try and get an officer to almost all of them, if not all of them, to address your concerns on the spot. So, thank you.
I would like to bring up our next guest, but before I do, I did want to give you a few statistics of the amount of police that we have in each city of Highland Park and Hamtramck and Detroit. There is roughly 2,700 police in Detroit. There's 40 police in Hamtramck and 20 police in Highland Park. This is like on the ratio of persons per officer. In Detroit would be about, well, Hamtramck and Highland Park is about 600 people per one officer. In Detroit, it's about 250. The number of police per square miles of territory that they have to cover is roughly 19 or 20 in Detroit and Hamtramck. There's roughly 20 police per square mile in Hamtramck, 19 in Detroit, and in Highland Park only 7 police per square mile. Hamtramck's about 3 square miles. And the racial composition of police in those cities, Detroit's police officers, roughly 34% of them are white. In Hamtramck, I think, I didn't check this, but I think about 95% are white. In Highland Park, I didn't ask our next guest what that is. Maybe he can allude to that. But I do want to introduce you to our next guest. We're very honored to have him with us. He's a very busy person, nowadays especially. He's not only a minister of a church in Highland Park, of the Greater St. Matthew Baptist Church. He's the reverend there. But he also didn't think that was enough work to do, so he also became a community and social activist, and now he's quite prominent as one of the leaders of the movement now, and many movements, especially very active with the Occupy movement. I just saw him speak at the May Day rally where we supported the rights of workers worldwide, and he gave a powering speech. He's very reminiscent of many of the great orators in history. He's a dedicated activist, and he's also now the president of the Highland Park NAACP. And he just was at this gigantic dinner that they have every year in Detroit, where, I don't know, how many people show up at that thing, 20,000 or something like that? It's 10,000, it's like the largest sit-down dinner in the world. And really, like 4 giant daises. I mean, some of you have been to this amazing dinner that the NAACP puts on in Detroit. And Reverend David Bullock is one of the leaders of this movement. And we want to thank him for coming and give him a chance to say some words first before we all get a chance to talk to him later. So let's welcome Reverend David Bullock to Hamtramck.
Good afternoon, everyone, and so excited to be here. It's such a beautiful day outside. Of all of the days to have this great dialogue, there's no better day. There's no better day because it's a beautiful day. Is that right? That's right. And I think the weather foreshadows the relationship that we can build and forge when we work together as a community. It won't just be a beautiful day, but it'd be a beautiful working relationship, be a beautiful community. I must honor the president of the Hamtramck NAACP. Let's appreciate the president of the Hamtramck NAACP. All the members, the leadership of Brother Bill, and to all the city officials, to our chief of police for being here today, for all of you, Hanson Clark, and all of you. David Bullock is my name, Greater St. Matthew Baptist Church, Highland Park NAACP, Rainbow Push Coalition, Detroit, Michigan, wherever Rainbow wants me to go at the time, I guess. And also serve at the church in Detroit. Bethany Baptist Church with my father, who's been pastoring for 30 years on the west side of Detroit in Bethany. And so we assist him as well. I don't really have much to add. I think that the personal experience of someone who's been in the community for a long time really cannot be trumped in these situations. And I will say that the relationship of law enforcement to the community popped on our radar when Reverend Little and that incident occurred maybe now 2 years ago. I think I've known Reverend Little a long time, Pastor Joseph Jordan, Corinthian Baptist Church. We have a relationship with them. And it wasn't until he was accosted that we became concerned about how the police were treating residents in the city of Hamtramck. And as it was stated, he saw some young men on the ground, recognized one of them as a family member, went over to intervene and really to find out what was going on. And if you know Reverend Little, you know he is not a big guy, right? No pun intended, right, Reverend Little, but he's not a big guy, right? He is not a loud guy, right? He's a very soft-spoken guy. He is not a vulgar guy. And so he went over to find out what was going on and eventually found himself on the ground as well. And it just didn't work out well. And so that brought this kind of smaller question of the police, law enforcement's relationship to residents on the radar. And I do think, though, moving forward, that that we've already heard the great response from our brother, that we have to figure out a way for the community and law enforcement to work together. And we have to figure out what that means beyond the kind of general phrase, work together. And I think, obviously, some kind of block club activity, communication and dialogue between residents and law enforcement, phone calls, emails. If you have a question, you can call. If you have a tip, you can call. I think all of that stuff makes a lot of sense, both in Highland Park, in Hamtramck, and in Detroit. But I don't think that gets to the problem. And so what I want to say very briefly today is that the real problem is that we are underserved in these communities. And it's amazing to me how people talk to underserved communities and basically say, I'm not going to give you any more resources. You all figure it out. I mean, that just bothers me. I don't know about you all. Maybe you like that kind of challenge. In the Old Testament, Pharaoh told the Israelites to make bricks without straw. Maybe you just like working miracles. They wanted Jesus to turn the stone into bread, feed 5,000 with 2 fish and a couple loaves. Maybe you're into that kind of superhero stuff. But it's amazing to me when you hear these numbers about how many police officers there are in Detroit, how many are in Hamtramck, how many are in Highland Park, right? If we were to do fire and emergency responders and start doing the numbers, we are underserved, right? And so you got a makeshift crew. I don't care how great the chief is, and I'm sure the chief is great. I don't care how great Godby is great, right? Highland Park right now doesn't have a chief because there were some internal problems there. There's actually 55 police officers on the force in Highland Park, but that number of, I think, 27 that you gave is probably the number of police officers that are actually on the street in squad cars, right? So you got 10,000 residents, you got 27 police, right, roaming the neighborhood. In Highland Park, if you build the problem, because now we have limited police, limited fire, limited law enforcement, right, limited resources. And in Highland Park, you got 1,400 lights pulled out of the city, right? So you have limited lighting, limited police, limited lighting, okay? Limited police, limited lighting. Then you also have zones, right? And I know it's probably not true in Hamtramck, but in Detroit, you actually have zones where there's a Detroit Works project. So you have neighborhoods that have already been devalued. So there is no real response for those neighborhoods. And we were in a panel yesterday talking to business owners, right? And the contrast between, let's say, a Whole Foods in Midtown that gets a police response, and then, say, a Metro Foodland on Grand River in Southfield that has to wait anywhere between 2 hours to 7 hours for the response. And so I think the real issue here is not just the community and law enforcement working together. dropping a tip, asking a question, something wrong, some kind of police sensitivity training. There's another issue here, and it's called not enough resources for communities. Now let's add another layer to this. But then at the same time, we have a governor whose public policy approach is to what? Is to balance the books without any extra cash infusion, right? So how do you balance the books without adding money to the books? It's called cutting, right? That's how you do it, right? And so it's called raising water rates that are already high, right? And so if you stack the problems, you have limited resources, right? We're not getting any more, right? So the governor says public safety is the number one priority for the state. So what that means is I'm gonna send 120 Michigan State police officers to Detroit. Thank you. So that's 2,700 plus 120. Thank you. I think that's not gonna solve the problem, right? I mean, so limited resources, and then what's the public policy agenda? It is not urban recovery. It is not a urban public safety plan, right? It is not working with federal, state, county offices and finding the money, right, to stabilize communities and to add to the law enforcement budget so we can hire more officers, so they can be more trainings, so they can be more response. Imagine this. I mean, so what happens when you really need the police to respond and there aren't enough, right? I mean, so that you can have the greatest relationship in the world with the ship captain, but if it's a big hole in the ship and no lifeboats, guess what? Y'all both are drowning. And so the real relationship that we have to build, right, with law enforcement is not just a relationship working in a community, right, that is devalued, that doesn't have the resources, but we need an advocacy relationship. The NAACP and Hamtramck needs to be working with law enforcement and city government in Hamtramck to turn up the heat on the county and the state and the federal government. I mean, that's like the real stuff we need to be working on. And so we're allies and asking for more resources, right? Because you can't really do the job, and it's not fair, right, to say, do the job. Okay, make these stones bread. Now, I'm hungry. And in fact, rye bread. I mean, can you do bagels? Can you do bagels out of stone? Right? I mean, right, so you get my point. It doesn't make sense to make that demand, but not have a partnership centered around advocacy for more resources. Okay, so that's one piece. And then our public policy approach on the state level is obviously what? Financial stability, but not economic recovery. Okay? So I don't care how you feel about emergency management, we need to turn up our voice on asking for more resources for public safety. Now, the Michelle Alexander piece of this. So Pastor Marvin Winans is in Linwood and Davidson, not too far from here, right? Gets carjacked. Okay? They sell the watch, don't touch the car, right? We thank God Pastor Winans will be in the pulpit Sunday, and we'll still get good Grammy Award-winning songs out of him. We appreciate that, right? You know, and I'm sure he appreciates the fact that his car was unscathed. Okay, now the $90,000 Rolex, I don't know. I mean, maybe he can get that. Well, that's what the news reported. You can never trust the news when it comes to numbers. If they say 20 people were there, 200 people were there, if they say 15 or 40,000, it's probably 90,000. I've never owned a presidential Rolex with diamond encrusted numbers, but you just think about that for a moment. Presidential Rolex with diamond, real diamonds, not cubic zirconia, diamond encrusted numbers. This is not a $15,000 watch, ladies and gentlemen. This is at least a $50,000, $60,000, maybe $90,000 watch. I called a friend as a pawn shop. He verified this. What's my point? My point is Pastor Winans was okay, but he was accosted. And this is what people are saying, though. They're saying, well, he should have recognized that there were 10 people in front of the gas station and gone somewhere else. Right? That's what they're saying. Now, I understand that point, right? But my point is this: as soon as we begin to adjust to violence, as soon as we give over our communities to gangsters, right? As soon as we let those who are involved in criminal activity have free reign, we've already lost, right? And so just like Harriet Tubman was born a slave, and that did not keep her from walking north, right? She did not adjust. Well, I'm not supposed to go. Right? You could see Harriet leaving, right? And somebody saying, well, you're not supposed to go north. And she said, okay. No, she said, well, keep on going, all right? I mean, I know what I'm not supposed to do. I know what it'd be wise to do, right? But there's a higher calling. So I think the other relationship that we need to build as we ask for more resources, is we need to build a relationship, right, that empowers regular community residents to feel like they have some tangible action or some response to the growing tide of violence. People cannot feel like they are prisoners in their own homes or in their own communities. And we've got to figure out a way how we can reinvigorate not just the block club call and drop a tip movement, right, but reinvigorate the come out of the home, come out of the sanctuary into the streets, come out of the schools and into the streets, kind of take back the night, reclaim the night movement. If the Detroit 300 community policing movement could really get some funding and people could be trained, you do two things. One, you'd be putting people to work, $28,000 for ceasefire caseworkers in some cities, right? That should be happening in Hamtramck, Highland Park, and Detroit. And so that's another way that we can partner to advocate for innovative programs that can help put folks to work and put people in the streets so that we are not trapped in our own communities. I'll close with this last one. There's no connection, though, between poverty and criminality. We need to break that, okay? In other words, just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to steal, right? And so we cannot excuse those, right, who are unemployed or in low-income communities and say if they only had a job, they wouldn't do that. Well, if they're stealing without a job, odds are if you give them a job, they're still on their job too, right? So there's a cultural issue. There's a mental transformation issue that we need to address, right? And so the other partnership then is the pastors and labor, right? So not just community residents, but faith-based institutions, the imams from the mosque, right? The rabbis, okay? And so we've got to kind of take that, the religious moral authority that we have, and somehow connect it to law enforcement, right? And figure out how we can, on the front end of the preventative side, right, get those juveniles who have some small offense on the first time and reclaim them, like CMOs and like Center for Youth and Families are trying to do, right? I mean, we got to figure out how we can work in a way to create partnerships that are preventative so that the stuff that Michelle Alexander is talking about, even in terms of how public policy target clusters and steers people into the prison industrial complex, ultimately can be thwarted if there's a relationship on the front side so that when somebody enters the system, right, before they're railroaded, right, there's a call from the law enforcement side that says, look, I think we got some good kids here, right? We need to convene a circle of elders or something and figure out how we can mentor, how we can inspire, how we can get these kids hooked up to Michigan Works and other programs and save them on the front end so that on the back end they're not loitering in front of a gas station and carjacking grandmama, right? So I think those are just kind of some of the things that we some kind of creative things that we can do and that we can think about even as we, continue to fight against the systemic race and class and other social issues. But I think the relationships must go well beyond dropping dimes and tips. It must be very, very proactive and powerful relationships that we form. Thank you so much.
Well, there's a lot of good points there. I don't know where to start. That's going to be tough to follow up. But one of the biggest things I did pick from that was resources. Resources are slim. We just don't have a lot of them. The Reverend said it, hit it right on the nose. Hamtramck, Detroit, Highland Park, we're struggling. We do need a partnership between the police, NAACP, the community to say, hey, Governor, come on, more resources. We need more community, things in the community. We need more cops. We need more programs, more programs to, like the Reverend said, for children that possibly for first-time offenders, things of that nature. To elaborate on that, though, one of the other things that we can be doing, which we already are now, is doing more volunteer in the police department. I don't know if everyone here is aware or not, but the Hamtramck Police Department has had a reserve corps for many, many years, predating pretty much everyone in this room. And we are actively recruiting for that. It's essentially a volunteer program. And over the years, it's dwindled. At one time in its heyday, it had 40 or 50 officers assigned to it. And mind you, these are all professionals with daytime jobs that do this to volunteer for the community. Many of them do live in the community. And we're attempting very strongly to rebuild that up right now. And second, to accentuate that, what Mr. Thurin was talking about earlier was community patrols. Another volunteer program, if you don't want to necessarily be full-fledged reserve, carrying a gun and badge and going out and actually helping us, you can volunteer for the community patrols. Go out in your neighborhood in a car. You don't even have to have any emblems or anything. Just it's essentially looking for things that are going on. Things like this incredibly help us and help the community to better serve the community. One other thing that it's new. We haven't officially kicked it off yet. In 2 days, my officers are going to be realizing it, but and it was funny that the Reverend brought this up, but we're starting a chaplain program in Hamtramck. So I'm going to be taking applications here real soon from all the priests, imams, and reverends, and whoever may be interested. Is that you? So my goal is to actually have the chaplains that come into our department to drive around with our officers, show up on the scenes, give that intervention before, maybe just arresting, maybe the chaplain can step in and talk to the kids, but all this stuff takes time. We're going to get there. It's just gonna take us and you partnering together to get us to where we need to be. So, thank you.
Well, we're all well aware of the economic turmoil in our country and in the world, actually, and we're familiar with the 99% movement and the Occupy movement and the realities that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Well, I think most of us fall into the second and latter category. The rich are 1% that are taking tremendous amount of wealth, equals like the bottom 80% of everybody else. And we're in that 80%, I think, almost all of us. We have a lot in common in this city, even though we're all from a different ethnic group, or we're all different color skin, or we all have different political beliefs or whatever. I think what we have in common is that we're all victims of the disparity of wealth in this country, and our reverend certainly made a reference to it. Limited resources, we're all victims to that, and we would have a much better community if we had some more money and some more resources, of course. And I think if we can all get on the board together, on the battle together for, and realize the things that we have in common, and not despite our differences of ethnic differences or racial differences, whatever, we have a lot in common. And one is that we all want to have safe communities. We all want to have, if we have children, we all want them to have a great future. We all want food. We all want housing. We all want safety, security. And we don't want to be treated differently. We want justice for everybody. And that would be the safest thing. If we could get to that point, that'd be wonderful. But I think we can't get there until we all realize what we have in common. 2 years ago in Hamtramck, the NAACP had a rally as a result of the arrest of Reverend Little. He was not part of that rally, and he wasn't there, and it wasn't about him. It was the fact that many incidents had taken place prior to that. And we were, when that incident took place, we were sort of deluged with a lot of people saying that this happens all the time in Hamtramck. We've had these problems before. We started collecting stories, and it was amazing what stories we gathered, and we thank some of our journalists in the city. I want to say specifically, but we want to thank people for helping us document the history of Hamtramck and the issues of race and racism. And so the NAACP did decide to have a rally to try to help bring the community together and to help foster better relationships with the police department. So we made a list of requests for the city council, and at the time, that was 2 years ago in March. And the short list of requests was to form a citizens review board that would help establish connections between the community and the police, a group of people who would help transfer concerns and issues back and forth so we could soften the relationships between, because at that time, they weren't good. We were not getting support from the police department. We weren't getting support from, excuse me, from certain political, certain politicians in the city, to be unidentified. And we wanted to try to get everybody to get on board with this issue. And we were frustrated. After taking these requests to the council, none of them were voted on, none of them were taken care of. We asked to form a citizens volunteer police force, a radio patrol police force, to at least look into it, the possibility of having citizens help the police department. We requested to train and hire from the community so we could have a police force that would look more like the people that live in the city, because, it doesn't. we requested to initiate stronger sensitivity training. They did have sensitivity training, but it wasn't mandatory, and it certainly didn't accomplish much. And we wanted to stop their $60,000 illegal quota of tickets that they were trying to make every month to pay off some bills or to pay for a couple officers that might have been laid off. So this is unofficial. I think something like this is still going on in the city. There is a tremendous drive to raise money through ticketing, as many communities are doing that. I'm sure some of us are victims of that. I know I was one. And I know going up to the courtroom on the third floor of City Hall a few times that I've had to be there for tickets or whatever. It's amazing to see the percentage of people of color on that floor compared to outside that building. I don't know how that happens. Maybe they want to try to fight the tickets so they don't have to pay for them. I know I did. I want to fight it, but I just thought there was some sort of injustice there for some reason. I don't know if more people of color are getting tickets or if they're just ending up in court more than others, but that bothered me. There's speed traps in the city to the point where this was a state issue in the media, and I don't think these speed traps have been addressed or corrected since then. So we requested that. We asked them to stop the $60,000 a month quota, and then we also asked to agree on a timetable for these requests, to find some way of when are we going to be able to address these concerns. Well, this was 2 years ago, and to this day, this is the percentage of issues that have been taken care of, except I find out from our chief that some of them have been without us knowing it, so we're glad to hear that, and I hope he responds to that. But right now, I'd like to open it up to the community.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming here tonight, and as a mayor pro tem of the city of Hamtramck, I'd like to welcome you to the city. And also I appreciate the fact that Bill Myers and I work on a lot of issues that he mentioned earlier, including Reverend Lil issue where we were outside the city hall, where I met Reverend Bullock that day. And I'm glad to stand up for the right of the people. I'm glad to stand up against discrimination and profiling. The issue that Bill Meyer mentioned regarding the community patrol, we really, that day wasn't on the council, or that year I was not on the council. Previously, I was the only councilman with Councilman Hood, African American, that who passed away recently, voted against the traffic patrol because there's a code. And that's what happened at the end. Of course, I also would like to mention that a lot of issues that we're facing today that we have resistance, but of course with the Chief Max, I think now we start to see changes. And I'm glad to say that growing up in the city of Hamtramck, involved in politics, that community initiative that we were fighting that day, we never get any vote on it. Remember, we went to the city hall, nobody voted on that issue. I'm sure Chief Max will do whatever he can for those issues that I mentioned, and I trust, that's why I trust Chief Max to initiate some of the issues that concern our community. Of course, Ms. Seaver, the president of NAACP, she knew me well when we worked together way back in the Human Relations Commission, 15, 20 years ago? And then, because we couldn't accomplish anything, we resigned. I resigned to do that issue. So, we have to stand up for changes. Changes doesn't come with an empty bottle, empty cup. Something has to fill it in. And I think people like Bill Meyer, Ms. Severs, Reverend Bullock, and Chief Max now on the board in the police department, we can establish a lot of things. Even the city council now changed. We have people there from minorities that really want changes. It's about time that we change, and I assure you, Mr. Meyer, that since we have a new mayor pro tem, we will have changes along with the Chief Max, and I guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I don't really have much to respond to that. Most everything he said was complimentary. I don't have too much to. I just want to point out that the Volunteer Radio Patrol, which is in big thanks to Raphael and many others, not here today even, is not really actually a police department initiative. I mean, it's a partnership with us, and we're continuing to integrate our police department more into it, but that was one of the things on the list that is happening, and it will continue to happen. My department's going to continue to encourage it, and I hope that more people will move on with it. There are a number of other issues that will continue to change. I know the big ticket one is the speed traps and the speed quota. I mean, I don't know where that came from or who made that deal or what that was supposed to be about, but there's not a speed quota or a speed trap in Hamtramck. Now, are there hot spots where our officers tend to like to sit because there's a lot of people speeding through them? Absolutely there is. Now, are there officers out there writing tickets and doing traffic enforcement? Yes, there is. I mean, to me, that's a necessity to have. Every police department has traffic officers. The part the traffic officer plays is to keep people from speeding, to keep people from running stop signs, to keep people from running red lights. For a number of years here in Hamtramck, we were really lax on that. And I mean, people were driving crazy. Now that we have officers out there enforcing this, and you know, I don't have official stats to back this up, but my lay stats, just looking at the logs coming in, and you know some of the stats coming in, that accidents are down. I mean, we unfortunately did have a serious one in the past this past few months back, but overall we're getting less of them. People are slowing down. People are actually doing 25 through the city and through the neighborhoods. I know the service drive has always been the big one. That's the one the news grabbed a hold of. And I really found that very amusing, because just before the news broadcast that this is the big speed trap in Hamtramck, the week before, that block club said, "Hey, Max," I was still the acting at the time, "can you ask the officers to come over here? They're flying through our neighborhood." Well, a week later, the news put it up as a speed trap. And that's just after the block club asked us to come over there and do that. So, like I said, once again, I'll reiterate, there are hot spots where officers like to sit. Well, that's because that's where the people speed through. That's where they run the stop signs. That's where they do things they're not supposed to. It's no one likes getting a ticket. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is a necessary function of the police department. So, but any other specific questions?
Okay, the speed trap means that it's unreasonably low speed limit, and it's illegal because they take tests, and you're supposed to be taking tests regularly to see if the speed is correct at that kind of traffic. So that's what this police report was about. There's no residential area on that service drive coming north on the east side of 75, all the way from Holbrook up to Kniff. Where's the residence? It's AAM.
I guess I should have mentioned we are doing a speed study through there. We've already done one. I had my sergeants go out there and already do a study one time, but it's a process. We've got to do it multiple times, and the initial indications are that it probably will get raised.
Hi, my name's Nadine Gizak. I want to thank you, Ms. Sievers. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm another representative from Hamtramck Community Initiative. I work side by side with Raphael. And Reverend Bullock, I love so many of your remarks. I really did. Okay. Here's something I just have to say so that I know that I'm on board with the NAACP. I'm a volunteer grant writer, by the way. Hillary and I are working on expanding the volunteer program, not just police reserves, but clerical, and it's all going to be based on a needs assessment to help with the workload of the police, increase their efficiency, increase their pride in their work, so the police can go out and get into the neighborhoods and talk to you guys to prioritize their patrols. So, Hamtramck, uniquely diverse. There's a really important study done in 2007. E Pluribus Unum by Robert Putnam. Now, when you have a really diverse community like ours, lower trust in government, lower trust in the media, lower voting. These are our challenges that we really need to address. It's so true in Hamtramck, only 10% of our population votes. And what have we got, almost 30,000 people? Only 10%? We're smarter than that. But we have an increased interest in social causes, like Neighborhood Watch, like the NAACP, like Take Back the Streets, okay? And what's really interesting, there's two really interesting points. this is almost all I have to say, except for a couple other things. People perceive their quality of life lower when all socioeconomic conditions are equal. You know, people in more diverse neighborhoods think they have a lower quality of life, even though they don't. And this one kills me, the love of the TV. The love of the TV. We gotta get off our butts, we gotta get on our porches, we gotta watch our neighbors' kids to make sure they're not breaking windows. We gotta know who our neighbors are. We gotta know how to say hello in like 8 different languages. These are the challenges we deal with, and I really appreciate you, Max, for trying. So, a couple of things we haven't talked about yet, and I wanna ask you, I wanna ask you about police legitimacy. I wanna know, how does the force feel? Do they feel like they're respected and appreciated? Do they feel like they're making a difference with immigrants, or foreign-born who can't speak English? Do they feel like how do they feel? Like, what is the level of police legitimacy, you know what I mean? You know, in our community. I really wanna know what you think in the department.
I would say probably underappreciated. Probably feeling like they have to put up the walls to the community because they feel like they're going to get attacked. For certain, as a police officer coming up, I felt that, every time I turned around, someone wanted to either swear at me, flick me off, or, nothing to do with me. It seems like there are the occasions where we arrest people that, we take flack for, but they really should have went to jail. I mean, countless times, I've been on the other side of it where I've had people coming in and yelling and screaming and saying, well, why'd you arrest this person? This person, they didn't ever do anything wrong. Well, you didn't see them out there that night. You weren't there. I mean, everyone has a bad day. The worst part about it is that the police officer almost always inevitably sees everyone on their worst day. When do you call the police? When you're having a domestic with your spouse, or you just had the car accident, or, you name your crisis. That's when the police officer comes out there. So naturally, well, is it gonna be a good day when you see the cop? Probably not. So, and our guys, just to answer your questions, they feel that too. We're human. We have the same emotions everyone else does. We're fallible. We make mistakes. We screw things up. But it's tough to do. It's tough to be a cop. So I hope that answers your question.
Good evening. My name is Mrs. Beatrice Woods. I've been here all my life. I was born at 9702 Joseph Temple and have went through the schools and graduated and went on to school. But the reason I'm talking is, we have to start out, when I was coming up, we had, I don't know how many policemen, because at that time, we had about 60-some thousand people living here. And they were from China, they were from Italy, Russia, Poland, and we had gypsies that lived here. They lived outside, but they lived here. And everybody got along. The Chinese had laundries and they had the long braids down their back. And on Joseph Campo was like Saks Fifth Avenue. The stores were so nice. And everybody got along because everybody was poor and everybody shared what they had with each other. And there was no discrimination, not here in Hamtramck at that time. But now you got some people running the city from the top down that don't care anything about the city. I'm going to say it because it was said at one of the meetings here or at the other community center that it was at like a breakfast or luncheon we had for the election, and the mayor said that they had just been given $18 million to fix the streets. They started on our street, they left it, they never came back. I fell, I got caught in the curb, I broke this shoulder, and now this wrist has just been operated on. and I go back on Wednesday because I slipped in the middle of the street on ice. And they don't take any responsibility whatsoever. And when you have a police department in a city, they're supposed to be working together. I have no problems with the police, because if I call, they're there, and they've been nice to me. And one of my neighbors was ill, and I called them, they were right there. But the police knew the people in the community. If they saw the children in the alley, like boys, when they're growing up sometimes, they would shoot craps in the alley. The police, there was a policeman named Felix, and he wasn't tall, but he rode the motorcycle. He would catch him, he'd take him home. They knew the parents. And my dad was supposed to go on the police force, but he didn't get a chance. But he died, but when he died, Institutional Baptist Church on Mitchell, where Strickland's funeral home used to be, there were so many policemen there at that funeral, you couldn't count them at times. But we need a city where if you're getting grants, she said they got $18 million. Last week they said they had another $1 million coming in. What are they doing with that money? When I talked with the governor, I said, you don't have somebody monitoring that money? Because where did the money go? The streets are not fixed. $18 million would fix practically every street we have, and some money left over. But it's just certain streets they go on. And so that money should be given an account of, because there's no reason for me to pay tax. The water bill's going up I don't know how many times. The taxes may go up, and I'm not going to pay because I'm not paying for something I'm not getting. And they also have the young lady Pat that was the secretary for the city manager. Why was she fired? She's doing a good job. When Crawford first had her for his secretary, the council didn't want it. And I could only see one reason, because they said that what did he need a secretary for? He's a city manager. Who's going to take his calls and messages if he's not there or if he's in a meeting? That's not right. And if you're going to have a mayor, she should be there at every meeting. And if she's got a job, then go to that job and get out of the way, because she is not good for this city. And they never should have put 6 people on the council. When I was on the Charter Commission, I voted against it, because we always, from the time I was a little girl up until now, we had 5 people on the council. It might have needed a little upgrading or something, added something to it, but to have the 6 people vote and have the mayor decide when she is not right at all. Thank you.
Mrs. Woods, I'm happy to report that we still do take some kids home.
I just have a simple question. As summer approaches, I'm just kind of wondering what's the level of opportunity for youth, especially employment, training, and opportunity. And I know that there's probably not much, but if we could address the need, perhaps, in resources.
You're saying opportunity for youth? You said opportunity for youth?
Yes.
Well, that's a little bit beyond me. I mean, we certainly probably can try and get some programs together, maybe with a police partnership with, but that would probably be more a better addressed question for recreation department, some of the other agencies within the city. I can certainly try and help put you in contact with them. By all means, I can give you my card and my email address, and I can forward you to the correct people on that. But like I said, I'm more than happy to try and recruit some of my officers into doing things, but we don't necessarily have a lot of programs at this point set up.
Right. I know that that's beyond your, but it's related. Maybe Raphael has some comments about the need.
I agree that it's completely needed and completely important and completely lacking. I get that.
About this earlier, and we really didn't address it too much, but the actual diversity of the police department, and I know that's been a concern for a lot of the residents here. And I remember speaking with Max at some meetings, about, kind of some of the barriers to getting that diversity in the police department. And one of those is we don't have a lot of young people coming and staying in Hamtramck and then working in Hamtramck. And we did kind of talk about it, and it's something that's kind of been, we've been playing with the idea of it, but is doing some sort of internship type of program to get youth that are in Hamtramck now into some, like the police jobs, or maybe some of the fire things, so that they can grow interested in it. They can get to know the officers and the people, and so that'll help them while they're there. And if they decide to stay, they can come back to Hamtramck and serve people. We can have those relationships like we were talking about, or Ms. Woods was talking about, where they do know the residents because they're from this area.
I should have actually mentioned that, but the program has not actually kicked off. We are looking towards starting to have interns and volunteers come into the police department. In fact, the one and only intern we ever did have, I'm happy to report, has just passed his background to become a police Hamtramck reservist. So he's got a few more hurdles, but hopefully the intern will soon be on our force. So.
Hello, I'm the Charles Seafers, that's my mother. So I throw out this disclaimer, the views and opinions of me don't reflect on her. So I gotta throw that out because I'm very controversial. So you talk about hiring people in Hamtramck to get on the police force, the fire department, and all of that kind of stuff. But first they have to pass the civil service test and all of that kind of stuff. But here's the thing, you do have people that graduate from Hamtramck High that are police officers, but they couldn't get hired in Hamtramck, so they had to go outside of Hamtramck to get hired. You got two brothers, you got a brother and sister right now that's a police officer. They graduated from Hamtramck High, they police in Detroit. You got the gentleman that the police had a confrontation with, Little, his nephew is a police in Detroit. You got another guy that graduated from Hamtramck High, McCord. He's a police in Detroit. It was another young man. I think he's a detective. Now you got a lot of people. Fire department. You had John Watson. He retired now. You didn't backfill him with nobody. It don't have to be black, but you could put Mexican, Puerto Rican, or whatever. What I'm trying to say is, why is these people can't get hired in Hamtramck, but they're going outside getting hired? You got John Anderson. He's a Macomb County sheriff. So that's my only thing. And the speed trap's been going on since what's his name? Kazarian was mayor. They sit right here on the Nevada, on Coney, up under the railroad track. They sit down here. They used to sit there on the service drive coming from American Axle to catch the people getting out of American Axle. They sit down where Mr. Zolak used to stay at and catch people coming down that service drive. They sit on Joseph Campo across the street from Clocks catching the people coming down there. My only thing is, and that's one reason why some of the stores in Hamtramck had to close up, because people hated coming to Hamtramck because of the tickets. And the same thing that's going on over here is getting ready to happen in Highland Park, because now Highland Park is writing all them tickets right up and down Woodward. And the store owners are complaining because people don't want to go over there no more. And what happens is, just like at my job where I work, we order out because nobody want to come to Hamtramck for lunch because they want to still have a job when lunch is over. They don't want to get arrested. They don't want no tickets, so they order out. We order from Main Street. We order from Clocks. We order from the Royal Cabal. So this is money that's being made in Hamtramck, but the people don't want to come here, so we got to order out. Thank you.
Okay, two main points. It was basically the lack of diversity and the lack of hiring from the community. That is an incredibly complicated thing to do. I wish I could hire people that I knew just came straight from the community. Currently, how it happens right now to get on the Hamtramck Police Department, we belong to a hiring consortium. There is actually a company that does our testing for us that, 15, 20, 25 departments from around Metro Detroit actually pick people off of this. What you have to do if you want to be an officer here, you have to have already went through the academy, and they basically take that test. That test ranks people from 1 all the way down to the lowest scoring, and essentially what all we're doing is taking right from the top. Now, I agree that that is not necessarily the most best way to diversify and take local residents, because you're just getting, based on a score sheet, the very top, highest allegedly qualified person. So with that said, one of the things I'm trying to do is augment how we actually hire in people into the Hamtramck Police Department. One of the things I want to do is start assigning more points for various things. Like, for instance, if someone lives in our community, I'd like to give them more points to get higher on that list. Another thing would be promote certain skills like bilingual. If someone speaks multiple languages, that's something we need. In my perspective, that person should get more points. But there's various things that I can and will ultimately hope to do, but I also have roadblocks, contractual issues, old civil service issues, and things that prevent me from just doing this. One of the big ones I really want to do is be able to pull from our reserves. If we have reserves that have already given time to our community and our department, in my opinion, I should be able to promote a reserve up to a full-time officer. But yes, I agree with you that a lot of people that live here went and found jobs elsewhere because it was easier to get into those places. Detroit's a huge community. A lot of these officers go there because they hire hundreds of people. We hire a few a year. If we get lucky that the person that we like from the community is at the top of the list, maybe we can grab them, but it's just not that easy, and more often than not, we just end up with a high-scoring person, whoever they may be. And also a lot of times too, and I hate to say it, but the high-scoring people on there that may be a minority don't want to come here. They may want to go to St. Clair Shores or Troy, who pays a heck of a lot more than us. So we end up with what we end up with. Now, there's other ways that I intend to help draw people that want to come and serve in this community, and that's to go to functions just like this. Pass out flyers, join the Hamtramck Police, join the Hamtramck Reserves, and I fully intend upon doing that. That's going to happen. You're going to see that. Just 2 weeks ago, I assigned one of my supervisors to design us flyers. Haven't got it back yet, and hasn't went to the printer, but it's going to happen. As far as the speed traps are concerned, like I pointed out before, there's always going to be the hot spots where officers are sitting. But I mean, it's, you had commented that people don't want to come to our city because they might get a big ticket. Well, if they're not speeding or they're not breaking the law, they have no problem. I mean, it's that simple. Now, I get it that some of the speed limits are a little low, but I already explained that we're going to do speed studies. Speed studies will set the actual speed limit where it's supposed to be, or at least where it's, these people are driving. It's hard to explain, but some of them will go up. But in short, if someone's not doing the speed limit, or someone's doing the speed limit, they're stopping the stop signs, and they're, everything's squared away, why would they be afraid to come here? I mean, I don't buy that argument. That, if you're not breaking the law, you don't have an issue. In my perspective, the more cops on the streets writing tickets for people that are breaking the laws, or arresting people for that matter. If we're arresting you, you're really doing something wrong. You're not just driving through the city and just speeding. If we're arresting you, you're doing something criminal. So, I hope that addresses, some of your concerns, but we are doing things to change that. You'll continue to see differences, and hopefully we'll some few years from now have a more diverse department. But it's hard to do. I can't just pick and choose what I want. I've got to some degree take from the top of the list, and if there's diversity isn't at the top of the list, I'm out of luck. So unless I do certain things, which I intend to do.
Well, back when we made those suggestions from the NAACP, the one solution we offered to the other chief of police was, in order to create diversity in the police force, was to offer an incentive to people in the community, Bangladeshis, African Americans, Arabs, whatever else that were not on the police force, to give them an incentive to pay for their schooling. We'll get a grant, pay for their schooling, it would be valuable enough to do it, with an agreement, some sort of a contract or an agreement that when they graduated, they would serve in Hamtramck for a certain amount of years, 2-3 years or whatever. So this is sort of like an affirmative action program, which I was always for affirmative action. I was very disappointed when it failed the motion in Michigan. But I think this would be a great way to support the community by including the people of color communities in this community to be part of the police force. I think that's critical because they have to identify their language, like you say, that's important. I appreciate your incentives for knowing other languages. But why can't we come up with a program to create, to pay for certain students that we would like to see as police officers in the city and hope that they would come back, pass the test and come back here and work?
Good evening, everyone. I have been a citizen of Hamtramck since 1922. I graduated from Hamtramck in 1939. And I have you know that the 1939 class still meet once a month on the third Wednesday at the Quinlan and 14 miles. So I think that's an honor that over 17 years. I joined the NAACP when they first started, Mr. John Wells. I am a life member. And when he was talking about some kind of way to get people to work with the police department, Wayne College Community College started right there at where we got Hamtramck High now. And they have all types of classes. And you can volunteer or whatever it may be. But you have an opportunity to go to school. But so many of our young people do not take advantage of it. And they should go. I mean, you can get financial aid. If you don't want to ride the bus, most young people have their own car. But that is one of the ways you can get started with your education. But so many of our young people and their parents do not want them to take advantage. And that is one of the ways you can get started. If you really want to love yourself, if you really want to love your community, and if you really want to strive to have a better community. Hamtramck had always been a community that worked together. Years ago, everyone took care of everybody, everyone obeyed everybody, and you had one. All of them have. But I like to say, I am a volunteer with the senior citizens and also with the youth. And they always get bullied in the high school. When working with the 3 and 4 years old, they're bullied there. And I work with them a couple of days, mostly every month. And they are bullied. So you have to start with the parents, with the community, in the home, and let them realize what it means to be together. I have had no trouble with the police department, and they have always come whatever I wanted them. I would like to tell whoever over getting the stores in Hamtramck, they only got dollar stores, and that's what makes people not come to Hamtramck. You only have 1 or 2 stores that you have. And somewhere along the line, someone is trying to find out why they only have the stores that, or whether they think we only have $1, but we don't have $5 or $10 or what it is. Another thing, I've been trying to get on the historic committee ever since they started, so I'm still not able to get on it. Like I said, I was Rock Club, head of the Unity Rock Club for over 22 years. So I know what's going on. Like the strawberry festival that was here, many people call and say, they still want to take advantage and come back. But no, if they didn't advertise, maybe all around here in Hamtramck. And there are times, you know, that the Hamtramck Festival, when it just be people all over something. You may not see them anywhere, but you will see them at that time.
The Strawberry Festival actually did well, from what I understand this year. There was a lot of people out there.
Yeah, and we always did. I would like to say about the mayor, I don't think he could be a mayor if he think he have a job. Now, when I got my master's degree, I rolled up to Mount Pleasant, and everyone know where that is. And I went up there because I want to get my master's degree in human research. And that's what they offer. And I do feel that if you really want to serve your community, keep them have some kind of way of traveling back from Ann Arbor back here, and he can do it every day, and not just come in once a month, because account for me.
If we can establish a better relationship and knowledge and communication with the police officers, if they come to our house, they come to our community, be part of the events, and relate to us on a personal level, as opposed to always having either lights flashing behind our car kind of a relationship, or a gun in front of our face relationship, that wouldn't be very nice either. If they could just be friendly to us, and we can be friendly to them, and we have more opportunities to do that. I think if you can ask your officers to hang in the city after they get off work, go to the restaurants here and talk to the people in the restaurants and get to know the people, I think we'd feel much more secure and safe, whatever color they are, that they are thinking like we are and protecting us.
What is drug forfeiture money, and how does it relate to the war on drugs? How is it affected by Michigan marijuana, legalized marijuana for medical use? And also that case that we've talked about before, I want to know where it is now, and of the young man who suffered death at the hands of a knife over the holidays.
Okay, we'll start with the forfeiture. Drug forfeiture money is essentially any money that's forfeited for someone participating in the legal sale of narcotics that law enforcement has managed to intercept in some way. Drug forfeiture money is then generally turned over to the law enforcement entity that seizes it, and you can use it for a variety of things, either more narcotics enforcement, training. And when I say training, it's all training, including sensitivity training. I mean, you can use it for just about anything, law enforcement related. In regards to, what was the second question?
How does the Michigan medical marijuana, how is that being handled with the police? Where's their head with this whole thing? And is there a distinction? How are they doing that?
Honestly, we haven't done a whole lot of anything with it. I know the city, they were trying to pass some ordinances and things of that nature, but I'm not entirely sure. We come across medical marijuana cards all the time with people in, I mean, if it's legal, I mean, they go about their business, but I mean, it's not really affecting us per se as far as forfeiture goes, unless they're doing something illegal, and if they have a medical marijuana card, they're not doing anything illegal along that aspect, so it doesn't really relate a whole lot of anything to it. So, you had another question?
Young man on Conant.
The young man on Conant, Ms. Meyer was referring to a homicide we had last year. He was actually stabbed to death on Conant. Currently, I've heard nothing back from that. I'm waiting for the prosecutor office to basically tell us what to do at this point. It's been in their lap. It's been in their lap for a while, and as I explained a couple times, the same prosecutor that's handling that is the prosecutor that's handling the big kidnapping, double homicide we've been working on. So I did speak with her before the last time when I had updated you this a few weeks back. I have not spoken with her again yet. So essentially, we're the police department's in a holding period, holding pattern. So, did you have any other questions? I think I got them all.
That was a young African-American man, and the four gentlemen who supposedly stabbed him were white.
Correct.
And there is a potential of this being a hate crime, and we have to have information to find out if there's something we should do about it. It's been put to the side for months and months, and we fear that this may be a bigger case than we know, and we want to find out as much information as possible. And I know you know all about it, and you're working on it. We can thank you for that.
I wanted to thank Mrs. Seifers for putting in her effort and not giving up, because I know it's tough getting people out and getting them involved. And I'd like to thank our chief. He's very, very involved in the community. I'm really proud that he's here and he's part of us. And he just, I don't know, he's everywhere and tries to, be a part of all these different little meetings and things and make himself really widely known to our community. And I don't think I've ever seen that kind of effort before in the police department. I'd like to touch on what Bill had said. I think that the civility and respect in the community is something that we really, really need to work on. And I know that the past chief had a real good relationship with the children in the school. He was their DARE officer. He'd bring his guitar. There was a real, comfortable relationship they had with him, and he could see kids out and see that they might be not in the best of circumstances and tell them to go home or, take them home, and I really liked that. And I was hoping that maybe not just you, because I know you have so many places that you need to be, but the other police officers going to the schools. Part of the problem in the neighborhoods too is the lack of respect. And the kids are out past curfew, and it's not a kid's fault. A 7-year-old is not going to put themselves to bed. They're just, as long as you let them get away with stuff, they're going to keep on doing it. They're going to stay up and watch TV till all hours. And then you have kids jetting in and out between the cars, and they're out there playing basketball. And I'd like to see some of these empty lots being utilized instead of them throwing the footballs from sidewalk to sidewalk over each person's cars, that they could be able to play in these empty lots. And, maybe to talk to them about having respect for the homes that are, adjoining those lots and not bouncing balls on their houses and things of that nature. But the other growing problem that I've seen, and your guys have it just happens to have been that they've had much more dire circumstances when I've had to call. But we've got some little ones, and I mean under 14, under 12, driving either on the parent's lap or with the parents next to them. And in fact, I had an elderly man go past my house the other day in a van with a toddler on his lap. And I think it's a huge problem. And I think that part of the information when talking to the kids at school is to let them know that it's such a serious circumstance that their father could go to jail, they could get taken away from their parents, and the vehicle could get seized, along with them being sued for any property damage that they cause as they're, driving. And that's part of the respect, I think, that needs to be instilled in the kids. And if it's the father that's encouraging the child to, do this, then the kid can come home from school and say, no, this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen if you allow me to do that. I know some kids think it's cool. And it might even be a necessity of a family that the dad's not there and they want the wife to be driven around, and it's the male child that's going to be doing it. But they really do need to understand that it's against the law and it's serious. And the curfew with the summer, it's really hard knowing that you guys are so busy with other stuff when we've got all these kids, other people's property. Maybe they're not taking anything, but they're just disturbing their neighbors. So I was hoping that maybe you guys could get a little more involved with the kids just before school let out.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, certainly we're strapped for resources. I wish we had more resources to be able to commit officers to do all these specialized things. And I'm also at a large disadvantage. I don't have a guitar, but But with that said, I'm actually hoping, and I'm in the process of working on trying to get a school liaison officer in place. I was hoping Mr. Titus was still here. I was going to call him on this one, but as a school board member. But I actually went before the school board just last week and pled my case to them to help the city with funding for just that. My goal is to get a school liaison officer that's going to all the schools to intercept the kids, before, problems happen, and run the DARE programs and get involved in the community, go, help the kids with their homework or something, you name it. But to me, I find that incredibly important, and I'm going to fight to get that back. As far as officers going to the schools, they are doing it. In fact, I know everyone is afraid of the canine, but I've got several requests for Officer Mark K. and the dog to come talk to the kids.
It's the person that's running the canine.
So, but he's actually, just as of like 2 weeks ago, he had a request to come. There was a children's function, and unfortunately it fell through. The timing got messed up, but he was going there, and he does go to school. He does, have the kids with the dog. I know the dog gets a bad rap, and I know you said the canine officer, so that he's a very stern officer. I'll give you that. But we're trying to breach that barrier. We're trying to, make it so that, like perfect example, the canine officer's walking down, and maybe the community knows him. Hey, officer, how are you, you know, but right now, there's still walls up between the police department and the community. I'll be the first to admit that, but, you know, they're not gonna come down overnight. It's gonna take time, it's gonna take more of this, it's gonna take me bringing my officers into the community, me taking them to the block clubs, getting the school liaison officer, getting the more resources. I mean, it's gonna be a long process. It's gonna take some time, and we're gonna trip and fall as we go a few times, you know, probably, but, you know, eventually we'll get to where we need to be. So, thank you.
Max Government, our new chief of police. So, you can see the major difference. We have the door open now. This is, to me, I feel a grand opening. And Max is here. We call him by his first name. How many chief of police do you call by the first name? We appreciate it. Max. And plus, I think an idea we could do here would be to maybe have a potluck with the police department and the community, all these great people here, which have a big event where all the police officers take off their uniforms and, I mean, they wear something else, and then they come and we all sit around and eat a potluck together or something like that, get to know each other. Yes, and we'll get to know each other, and I mean, I remember one incident of me when I had an officer that I had a problem with because he kept stopping me all the time. I saw him at some public event, and he was off duty. We just started talking like one-on-one, like we're the same kind of people. All of a sudden, we realized, you know, when he's in uniform, he thinks he's this big guy. When he's not, we're the same kind of people. And we got along after that, ever since then. All you got to do is find one occasion to try to relate to these people and relate to each other. And Max has gone overboard to do this, and we really appreciate you for being here on this panel. There's many more to come. We just touched the surface. A lot of questions, a lot of bad stuff that's happened in Hamtramck that we have to address, a lot of great stuff that we got to commend, and it can only be done by open communication. And you've opened the door, and we thank you so much, Max Government, our new chief. We want to also thank our president of the NAACP in Hamtramck, Juanita Seegers. Thank you, Juanita. Reverend David Bullock had to leave early from the Hamtramck, from the Highland Park NAACP. Raphael Thurin from HCI. He's in town, you'll see him quite often. So, and the best round of applause goes to all of you for participating on this beautiful day and being part of this special. Thank you so much. Support the NAACP. Join us on all our work, spread the word. We can leave some donations for our group. We have to pay for something. Have a great day.